Hello, everyone. It's Tad Hargrave from Marketing for Hippies. I'm here with Kellita Maloof of showgirlawakening.com, and we're talking about point of view. This is, um, yeah, probably out of everything I do with people, this is, I suppose, the thing that's most unique. It's not something I came up with necessarily. Inspired by a woman, Lois Kelly, who in a book about word-of-mouth marketing spoke a lot about point of view, and it reminded me of what Jay Abraham, marketing guru, talked about. And anyways, I've just kept deepening into it, and it's struck me as one of the least talked about but most important pieces of marketing. And fundamentally, when I say point of view marketing, I mean, it's just, well, what's your take on things? What's the premise, that your work is based on? Jeffrey Davis had this great formulation of problem, premise, promise, and what's the problem that people come with, and then what's the promise you offer them. But in the middle, which is most of the bandwidth, is what's the premise? What's your understanding, your worldview, your spin, your unique take on the whole situation? And of course, there's the simple level of that. You can have I wrote an ebook called "Don't Market Yourself, Market Your Message," which is the pithy distillation of it. But kind of underneath that, can be the potential for a whole deep cosmology that's profoundly articulated, meaning kind of jointed, fits together in a really ornate fashion. And so that when people dig into it, they're kind of stunned of how much there is to see. And I suppose this is the thing that separates the pros from the amateurs, is any amateur can have a message, but it takes a pro to have a point of view. It takes somebody's done the work when they've really articulated a kind of entire cosmology. It's kind of their magnum opus. It's their something that they're going to leave behind. And this is, people come for the problem, but they stay for the premise. Frankly, they stick around for the philosophy of the thing. Even though the problem is what gets them in the door, they often start to see how that understanding has broader implications than what got them to show up. And so all of that is kind of me trying to set the table for this conversation, because I think more than anyone I've worked with, Kellita has done an incredible job. She was in my mentorship program, is back in now as this recording, but has done a better job of really articulating a point of view in a remarkable way, and in a very practical way, which I want to share. So just next stage of putting the plates on the table now is, so Kellita specifically works around burlesque and helping women create a burlesque solo. So there are a lot of women, been secretly drawn to burlesque for years, and just delighted at the thought of doing it, but terrified at the thought of doing it. And something happens at some point in their days where they finally, okay, that's it, I'm going to do this, I'm going to take the leap. And a very terrifying prospect for a lot of them. And so that's, I think, the inciting incident that gets them to come, is just this draw to burlesque. But of course, when they work with Kellita, she's got this amazing, and here's the beginning of some of the point of view, this Venn diagram of art, psyche, and spirit. So, they're drawn to art, yes. There's something about the art of burlesque that draws them. But these people are also drawn to, and, Kellita comes from this place of deep psychology, but also spirit. And so it's where these three intersect, I think, is why people who are drawn to burlesque would probably pick Kellita's work, because it's a mix of all that sparkle with glitter. So, so yes. And why do you think these women are drawn to burlesque in particular? There's a lot of art forms, and dance in particular. There's a lot of, the hippie dance classes people could go to. So why burlesque?
For me, and it seems like for most of the women that I've worked with, it's specifically being seen aspect, being seen on purpose, and on their own terms. Yeah, that's the biggest difference from all the other dance forms, and And in the solo, it's a solo that they've created. They've chosen what they're wearing. They've chosen the movements. And while I do work with some professional burlesque dancers, most of the women have never done anything like this. So they're coming from, yeah, but it's their movements, and it's they're choosing the music. It's all them deciding
It's a
how.
much,
Yeah.
sorry, it just seems like a much more vulnerable something, because if you're in it, you say, well, I want to dance, and so you sign up for a dance show. Well, someone else is deciding the lighting, the score, the choreography, the costume, and so you're 10% expressing yourself, but 90% you're expressing the vision of the director,
Yeah.
whoever it is, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But there's something about burlesque that is, this is you. You are expressing you now, and you're probably expressing parts of yourself that you've repressed for a long time. And so, we were speaking before about how there's a liberation. The women have maybe felt kind of constrained or trapped, or certain parts of them just sequestered. And this is a liberation. This is a coming out. Yeah.
And the fourth wall is non-existent or very thin, depending on how the artist wants to set up the act. But in most burlesque, it's I see you and you see me. It's literal. The artist might not be looking into the eyeballs of everyone out there, but there is that sense. It's that I'm me, exactly me, the stardust essence of me in a body is looking out at you. I am permeating you to the degree that you want to receive me. And on the other side, I'm here, and this is where I'm toggling with how much I want to let you see me. And even the clothing coming off is I'm deciding, sometimes with the literal clothing, how much you're seeing. But what's even far more interesting to me than what layer of clothing is coming off, it's every second I'm consenting or not consenting to you seeing me, and how. So it's keeping the artist, the woman there, on her toes to continue to decide every second. And she can literally use a veil or a piece of clothing to make it explicitly obvious you can see me or you can't see me, but really she's toggling with on the energetic level of how much we get to see her or not. It's very powerful choice making, consenting in action. And it's also busting whatever ideas that someone might have had about what's beautiful. Because what's beautiful is a woman who is alive in her body. That is what's beautiful. A woman who is alive in her body, full stop.
Okay. So people to hear what you just heard Kellita share is her point of view.
Yeah.
So this is what comes out when somebody has a clear point. They can't help but speak about it.
Yeah.
And so it's very good. Now, I remember when we first started working, there was and this point of view was coming out, the 3 R's, which we're going to get into.
Yeah.
The whole deck.
Yeah.
It was. There was some real fear about speaking about these things. And I'm curious if you could just speak about that journey of what felt confronting for you, and what is it you feel more comfortable about speaking now. But just for the audience, the fear was, of course, if you see things differently than everyone else in your industry, your mentors, your colleagues, and then you're speaking out in a kind of disagreement, that's very vulnerable. Let's say you're a doctor, but you're against vaccines, or you're a holistic practitioner and you're for vaccines, whatever it is.
Right.
And you're going to say something so. That's a properly vulnerable thing. So I'm just curious about your journey on that.
Yeah. Well, I have to just say that I remember being on retreat as part of mentorship with you, Yeah. And um, what was it exactly? You were, inviting me to articulate, okay, what's going on for someone before they do this, and then how is it after? And I don't know if that was the frame of the question, but I was so paralyzed about articulating it that I just went to tears. That's how much it was confronting to me, and scary to come to this articulating. And I'm in such a different place now, and very grateful, Dad. But this, as I think of specifics around this, it's drawing me to specific cards. I know we haven't talked about the cards, but I'm thinking of, we'll try to move away from the cards and just to answer that question. Okay. So anyone drawn to modern day burlesque is, no matter how they're using it, there is a level of liberation. And I think there are also, even in this beautiful subculture, there are ways that someone could perform burlesque for many years on end and even have it be a major part of their life, and have it reinforce, unbeknownst to them, reinforce wounding, actually.
Right.
So this is something that I'm actually just beginning to speak to out loud in public. I don't know how much to say here right now, or just to refer to that.
No, I think I get it. The beautiful. Yeah, there's a way that you, isn't it strange that the thing you go to for the solution can be a doubling down of the problem.
It can, yeah.
Yeah, that's possible. People think, oh, finally, I'm doing the thing that's liberating me, but you could do it in a way that, it strikes me that, I remember some of our conversations, because you're saying what's so beautiful is a woman alive in her body and choosing whether to be seen or not, but that it's utterly possible that a woman could do burlesque and never let herself be seen.
Yeah.
She could let her body be seen or not, but in terms of herself, that's really up for grabs. And I think I remember you saying how you'd seen a lot of burlesque acts where they just felt flat and dull, and you were bored, and kind of like, there's just nothing, there's no zip here. And yet somebody could take off a glove, and that would get from the audience because of a kind of nakedness on stage, emotionally or energetically. So again, you're starting to hear refinements of point of view. You're starting to hear distinctions. Because remember we made this thing, naked versus nude, was it, or something? Or
I think it was naked versus nude, and I'd like to come back to those two columns. Yeah.
It's so this is point of view, is you start to make these really refined distinctions where you just say, look, there is a difference between these two things. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you point it out, you can see it. It's like, yeah, a woman could be nude on stage and yet not naked, and a woman could be completely naked on stage and entirely clothed.
Yep.
So these are the kinds of distinctions that become very important and powerful. And so a lot of your work, it seems so women are particularly drawn to burlesque, and the reason they're drawn is there's something about being seen, the terror, but also thrill of really being genuinely naked, being genuinely witnessed, and the power of getting to be in control of that. And you have a particular philosophy around your approach to that, because of course, nobody needs to go to any kind of burlesque trainer to go and do a burlesque show. Somebody could just, right, got it, and through their own, wounding and whatever, dysfunctions and people have, could then go grab a costume, come up with a choreography and probably do go on stage.
Yeah.
And yet it becomes an expression of the troubles maybe in their life, as opposed to a way of healing it. And you have a way of approaching it where the burlesque performance can be an act of healing for themselves, as opposed to furthering the damage. And so there's the 3 R's, and maybe that's a good place to start. I remember we worked real hard on this, and when it came, it was so clear.
Yeah, and it's funny, I had a lot of placeholders. Like I had revel and reveal and receive became clear to me in those words probably 9 years ago, but now they're more fleshed out for me, and with subtones. But the three movements are reveling in your body, which that term reveling is I'm using it in a little bit of an expanded form of actually having sensing, feeling, knowing, having your own the experience of you in a body, of knowing what it is, tuning back into it again, that kind of that little every second, and how is it to be me in my body right now, and in this moment, and to have the fullness of that, to have the full joy and the full grief and the full, all of it, to have that accessible. So that's the reveling in the body. And the second movement, and I mean movement as not just as a physical movement, but second thing to unfold is the revealing of your radiant essence. And even though it's very obvious if there's an audience and someone on stage, that's the dyad, but really the dyad that's just as important and is happening simultaneously with that is the self on the self revealing yourself to yourself. So the audience, when they're good and trained, as I make sure that they are, they can be, whether it's in class or in the actual performance, they are seeing us into ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, it's like we can hold on to how they are seeing us until we see ourselves in that way. That's why who we pick to be our audience is really important, because it is an exchange. It's an exchange. So, and
I hope everyone's hearing the point of view of what she's saying. You just heard a couple more pieces. The audience is important. The audience needs to be trained, etc. Well, it just strikes me also that this revealing, you played me an audio from one of your students who was saying she watched a video of herself.
Yeah. And
do you want to express maybe what she said about the witnessing herself?
Yeah, I think the words were like, who is this? Who is this girl? Who is this woman? Is this what other people see? What's that?
She surprised herself.
Surprised herself. Yeah.
Yeah, revealed to herself.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got reveling, we've got revealing.
Yes. And then, the holy grail territory that I am still learning in is the receiving what you desire. So that's an obvious explicit way of receiving would be for someone to give you a verbal compliment. Yeah. And how much do you deflect it? Do you deny it? Or do you actually let it permeate you? Do you let it land and then thank them? And so how that happens when you're being witnessed creating your act or in the show is how much do you let? And this is very much a back and forth. It's not just one way from the audience. It's they see you and you feel them either with their voice or just their presence, how they are apprehending you. Do you let it in? Or do you block it? The same thing with a compliment can happen on stage, where you kind of one way to block it is to leave your body. You might remember the steps you're doing, but you might actually step out of yourself and go to the back of the house, or some of you may go home actually.
Right.
And you just get through it. And it was wonderful. And your colleagues in the show, they said, "Oh, did you hear them? Did you see? And if the reaction is, no, did it go well? I don't know. I don't know where I went. Time kind of stopped. I'm not sure. This to me this is real. They're telling the truth. They weren't there.
Wow.
This is entirely possible. This happens to people who've done this a lot. Yeah.
Wow.
So the receiving is, you have to stay there. You have to keep reveling. You have to keep the revealing consent moment by moment, and let yourself digest, let it land.
Beautiful. Well, so it's interesting. So I remember we did a lot of kind of work crafting and I think, was it with the Revel, Reveal, Receive? Because you had it before, right? But did we Venn diagram it in working together, or?
Oh yeah, we Venn diagrammed it.
Right.
Yep. And what also came in was the archetypes. I knew, again, I had the names. I knew what they were. I knew it was the reimagining of the diva and the ingenue and the starlight, but I couldn't tell you specifics. And so it was from our hashing through that I came to understand, who is this alive and well diva, who is this alive and well ingenue, and then the collapsing and the posturing. So these are the things that got fleshed out.
Right, you had some sense of the archetypes. And was there also a connection of the archetypes to the reveling, revealing, receiving?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, all of this came in our work together, all this part. Yeah.
So, okay, so this is what can happen in the point of view work is you do have some broad strokes ideas, but it's the fitting everything together of, well, how does this fit? I keep having this with my work. I just realized something really big. I did a video on it just the other day about it's 3 levels of marketing: get people's attention, filter, lower the risk. But I realized that getting the attention is hub marketing, the cold, warm, and hot. Anyways, it was for me personally very exciting. Maybe not for anyone else, but I was pretty excited. And whether or not anyone would be excited that I came up with that, it just makes it clearer. So when I'm speaking about something, I can say, well, here are these pieces, right? And here's how they fit together. Oh, I see how that's what you do in this situation. So, okay, the thing I loved, which was just so amazing and creative, is you did all this, work on your point of view, and you put so much thought into it. But then you thought, I'm gonna not just write an essay or a blog post or do a video about it or have a live workshop or all the typical ways. You decided to create a deck. And so, do you want to do the screen share and maybe walk us through this deck? Because I just think this is such an amazing creative way to express one's point of view. Gives one a product one could sell, which that ain't bad. So, let's take a look.
Sure, here it comes. So, share screen. All right. Here we are. So, I'm not sure where to put the little boxes with us so we can still see things. I'll move it around.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are a few suits in here. And it's color coded because this really, someone might just want to, and I hope they will, pull out a suit and just play with that one suit, or pull out another grouping. So the top line here with the little teal fan, make it a little larger so you can see some of this. These are the movements up here, the shimmy, shake, turn, etc. And the little purple fan here are the archetypes. And these 3 pillars we spoke of, the reveling suit, the revealing suit, and the receiving. And you'll notice that up here in the movement and the archetype suits, there are 3 trios, because these first 3 archetypes are most closely associated with the reveling. So they actually add in, if you want to look at all the reveling cards, and these next 3 with the reveal and so on. And perhaps the suit I'm the most excited about is this one, which is the frames suit. This is the richest one. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't spend any less than 1 month on each one. If you really wanted to give them a nod, you could easily spend a year with just one of them as a guide, as a lens. And I really mean frame. They're called the frame cards because they're like a new pair of glasses, each one. So you're just like putting on a new lens through which to see your life and the world. And yeah, there's 12 of those. And then at the center, and we might take a peek a little later at just at the visual of how they all relate together. And the mystery is at the center of all of it. So yeah, guide me from here. What would be a fun entry point?
I'm so delighted by it. So so this top row, these are the physical movements, the 9 basic physical movements. If you were going to construct a burlesque solo and you're looking for kind of leads on the choreography, here's 9 practical things you can do that particular to burlesque. And then below that, if you're constructing your burlesque solo and you're thinking, well, kind of what vibe do I want to go for? What kind of tenor or tone or aesthetic do I want to have? That there are 9 potential archetypes that you could pull from. And you could say, I really want this moment or this particular performance to be the bombshell. And that would have certain attributes and all that. And then, so the revel, reveal, receive. So I love this. So with the reveling, so there are 8. Are these, what would you call them, principles or
actually notes?
Elements?
You could say elements. Elements might be not elements or notes. Almost like facets. If you have a jewel and it has many facets, but all the facets are part of that jewel. These are facets, notes, or elements.
Great. Okay. And so the let's maybe just pick one of these. So with reveling, what does original authority have to do with reveling?
In order to know that you are having your own sensations and your own feelings, and that's primarily what you are living from or creating from in that moment, you actually have to be in your body as the original inhabitor of your body and being the author of your feelings and the author of your choices. And someone might say, what do you mean? How could I not be that? Well, very easily in my opinion, you could be 80% having the feelings of your mother or your partner or your someone else, or you could be moving mostly from guidelines that you have accepted from society about how it is safe and okay to be you. And if you're moving from that, you actually can't revel because you don't have your own original authority available to you.
Yeah. And so with revealing, what does resonance have to do with revealing?
To reveal ourselves in congruence, we actually have to find resonance with the other, whether that is the intrapersonal, self on self, or the other person that we are revealing ourselves to. If there isn't a resonance, and resonance meaning first an attunement, does the other, and again, I mean this, it can be self on self, does the other recognize that another human is in their presence? Or are you annexed by them? So first, this recognition of, oh, there's another human who matters,
right,
and belongs. And from that place of attunement, then can move to resonance of, and what are they feeling? It's just as important, the person in the audience, and the person in class with the other person creating their solo, that they know what they're feeling.
Right.
Both folks. So there, that's my shortish answer on why resonance is important in revealing.
And then with receiving permission, why does that matter?
I'm still working with all this. So I'm going to use an example from my own experience. And I'm actually going to take it I talked a little bit about in the receiving when we made the first pass of how much do I let you see, how much do I receive from how much do I see from you in your reception of me? But so I'm going to take this actually outside of burlesque just to in general. Until recently, my experience with permission was that I had a very strong gate for myself. You can apply all this to a solo, but it works in life in general. I had a strong gate for myself of, did I have permission to say, ask a question in class? Or that gate was solid. But the other gate of, can someone ask me a question or ask me to do something? It was a very limp gate. So my permission was distorted. It took a big oomph for me to say, can I participate? And I would accept anyone's request of my time or my opinion. So the same thing in a solo, if you're on stage and this is not a verb I use much, but if you're pandering just to what you think they want, you are not actually, you have this kind of a gate. You have this kind of limp gate of what you will accept. And so to give your permission is that thing, when you're tuned in every second to how do I feel right now? What do I want and what do I need? How do I feel? What do I want? What do I need? If those questions are continually being answered, you can give solid permission to, I want, need, and feel this, and you can see this and have this from me. So the permission is, it's activated consciously. Activated consciously, yeah. I still haven't written that card yet, so.
Okay. And then these, essentially we had a whole conversation we recorded about posturing and collapsing.
Absolutely, yeah.
So now, how might somebody use these? How would they?
Someone might. Of course, you can just shuffle the whole deck and pull a card a day. I think a lot of people are familiar with that use it like an oracle. But I really want to name a little more. And I'll say one other way before I say that. You might take the Showgirl Awakening quiz and discover which of the archetypes you're most resonating with, and discover how alive and well she is, and you may then, let's say, like I have the ingenue is the one I consistently get. Some people get different ones at different times. I consistently get the ingenue. So I might look, okay, ingenue, she's connected to reveling. I'm going to pull out of the deck all the reveling oriented cards. I'm just going to work with those 12, say this month. And I'm going to pull one a day of just the reveling. That would be one way. There are so many ways to play with it. Or if you're wanting to work the movements, you might pull the 9 movement cards aside and say pull 3 and make a short improvisation with just those 3. I call it giving yourself a bone. So you don't feel alone when the music starts and you're playing with it, that you have something already. You can't have a blank slate because you have those 3 bones. But I do want to say something about making the implicit explicit. When we approach any kind of oracle, we are looking for meaning.
Right.
And so what we pull and when you get a card and you read about that, it's going to encourage you to know what you know that you didn't know you knew. our explicit knowing is so small. But what we're moving from and making choices from, whether it's creating an act or anything we're doing, we don't know what we know. So it's so I love oracles, and but this can be used as a learning deck or an oracle. Yeah.
I could imagine, if somebody was constructing a burlesque solo, let's say in particular, and they were feeling stuck with it, they could say, well, which is the archetype that I'm working with? And then out of that suit of the archetype, which of these things am I stuck with? But I could also see what if you were feeling stuck in your burlesque performance or just stuck in life, you could pull any one of the those core principles, the orange suit there.
The frames, the frames.
You can pull any one of them. It's like, okay, how does this frame relate? And there's probably going to be something there about how that relates to being stuck.
Yes.
Let's take a look at the big map. You've got this.
Oh, yes. So this is the first draft. It literally came in last night. So it may change, but yeah, let's look at that. There we go.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Look at this.
I know.
What?
I know. And it's going to be available. Someone can have it printed on cloth, 22 inches by 22 inches, put it on the wall, just have it as, meditate on it. Look at you, Dad. You're the grandfather of this.
Oh my God. What a beautiful baby girl.
Yeah.
Wow, this is incredible. Now, I'm noticing this gray on the kind of inside, the resonance, body, love, specificity, intimacy.
All that around there, yeah.
Is that in the cards, or did I miss it?
It is. Those are the elements of reveling, revealing, and receiving.
Oh, right. Okay.
Apart from, so here we have, the core, the mystery at the center. I think the mystery needs to be larger. Again, this is the first draft. Revel, reveal, and receive. This whole third of the pie is all the reveling cards. The movements, the archetypes, and the elements. I know. And then, and then the frames are outside all around. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Oh man, everyone watching this has point of view envy right now. I have point of view envy. Man, I don't have something this good. This is really incredible. Here's the power of something like this is, you could, if you're teaching a workshop, you can have that at the front or project it on the front. Whenever somebody asks a question, you can just point back to it and say, oh, that question, that goes here. This place you're stuck, it's this.
Yeah.
And what happens is every time you point back to, this is an old facilitation trick I learned. I remember reading a book about facilitation. I'm so glad I read this book just for this. But they said when you do a workshop, you're using flip chart paper. Well, they said, first of all, use flip chart, not whiteboard, because whiteboard you have to erase.
Yeah.
So flip chart, instead of flipping it over, you tear the page off and you put it on the wall.
Yeah.
And why? Because visually, then you can always point to it, and it keeps reinforcing the thing you were teaching about. Because when you said it the first time, they heard it a certain way. But then somebody asked a really tough question. You say, I'm glad you asked that, because that actually relates back to the thing. Now they get like another layer of it, and it keeps deepening their understanding of it. Whereas if they couldn't visually see it, it's more work for their brain. But with this, you can just say, look, you can keep, and people, I imagine, would, they could work with you for 5 years and they would keep seeing new things, and you would too.
Yes, no, me too. Absolutely. Not just other people. This is, honestly, I could wait 30 years and share this right before I die, but no, I want to live into it with people.
Yes. I've had the same thing as I was saying at the beginning, where I've been literally, as I'm teaching a workshop, I see some new connection. I see, oh my God, the hub marketing goes here, or the relevant credibility value. Oh my God, that goes in the filtering. And risk. Oh wait, there's 3 levels of risk, and I was able to.
Yes.
And it's not that it gets. It's not you're adding more in volume. You're adding more in connection and integration.
Yes. Web, interweb.
Yeah, and this is very. I'll just say from a marketing standpoint, this is where this is what impresses the hell out of people. This is where the trust is built. So if we say problem, premise, promise, the premise, that's where people say, okay, you got something to say. Relevance, credibility, value. The premise, that's the thing that builds the credibility, empathy, context, guidance. What you're seeing here in this map, this is the context.
Yes.
The context of what? Well, context of a particular journey. Context. If we go very specific, it's the context of creating a burlesque solo, but also more deeply, this is the context of, a kind of, I think very generically, women's empowerment.
How to individuate also.
Yes, right. Could you maybe just say a bit about that? Because it's interesting, the connection of burlesque and individuation.
Yeah.
So first of all, what is individuation? Why does it matter? And then how does this relate to it, I guess?
Yeah, okay. Oh, when I come to this topic, I feel the enormity of it. So I had to kind of step back for a second. Ask those questions again, just those.
Well, let's just start with what is individuation? Yes. It's a psychological term.
Yeah.
And what does it mean?
So individuation, I actually have to back up and put it in a slightly larger context, because I want to actually put it in the context of spiritual growth versus spiritual bypassing.
Okay.
And I'm not even sure if I'm going to live back into that, but I just had to name it and put it in the field. That fall within that. In order to sometimes I go into a little bit of a fuzzy, foggy place. If anyone has watched my one woman show, I know you know this. When I get to the elements that are so close to me that I sometimes can't see them, I literally have to back them up a little bit. We'll go back to the original authority. I'm going to anchor myself. One of the reasons I've made cards is because they're like little anchors for me. Like, original authority. So in order for me to actually know what I want to wear, how I want to talk or be understood or be seen, I actually have to I'm feeling so close to this one. I have to know what I would like. And it's not a given, and it's not simple. Until I have individuated, until I have recognized, and this is not a one note recognizing, this is a process, how much I have inherited what I think. For example, actually, I'm going to say it on a level of intergenerational, systemic intergenerational experience. Pardon me, it's going to back me up to big picture. Yes. Every child ever born, every child, no exception, wants to heal its parents and the family before it and all the generations before it, every last one. Mm. And we contort ourselves to try to do it. Oh, this is all happening in the implicit. My mother doesn't like it. We learn really quickly. My mother doesn't like it when I cry in this exact way. My father can't reflect me or when I make this kind of a request. We log all of it and we start to act differently, speak differently, dress differently. And these are all movements that are away from individuation, but towards belonging. So the trick, this is just the human dilemma, is how can I be authentic and still belong? Mm. So individuating is the absolute necessary step to nose out of compulsive belonging compulsive alterations of self in order to belong, to know what I know, say what I need to say, risking some of the belonging. Yeah, so it again is this process. But if I don't do that, I am only parroting and copying and pasting in just as ineffective a way as it might have been upline. I'm copying and pasting into my own experience the pain of what came before me rather than creating something new. I know this was a long way. This is how I could access it today. So what happens is if we don't do the individuating, and a burlesque solo, creating burlesque solos has been one of the primary ways that I have engaged individuation. And it allows me to, on that bigger level, how I laid the frame of spiritual bypassing or spiritual growth. I mean, individuating on its own is a massive spiritual. It's not just psychological. It's a massive spiritual movement, both psychological and spiritual. But it's really uncomfortable. It's a really uncomfortable to do because we risk everything.
Yes.
And if we don't do that, though, any kind of spiritual growth really strongly risks being spiritual bypassing. I think I'll pause there. I don't want to go too deep in that, but yeah.
No, I could listen for hours to that. But what I want to lift up for people listening is what Kel did there is connecting this big picture to the micro to the macro. And if you can't do that in your point of view, you're missing something really important. It's if I can't talk about how the sales tactic of overcoming people's objections is connected to colonization, I don't know what I'm talking about yet.
Yeah.
If I can't see the small in the big and vice versa, if I can't point out how this philosophy works on multiple levels, because it's got to, and we've got to be able to see where it fits in the bigger story of being human. It's like great, cool map, cool cards, but so what? Is a really worthy question.
Yeah.
It's like, so you got this, yeah, you got a fancy little, Venn diagram.
Right.
Cool. Cool story, bro. But so what? Who cares? What difference does it make to the world? If everyone in the world got access to this, was able to do this work, then what? How is it that these things and these little circles here and these little, thirds of the pie, how does that show up on the bigger scale? That's where it becomes very compelling for people, because there's also something about, and I would actually, it's funny, I would start my marketing workshops like this for years, and I kind of stopped doing because I said so much other content, but I would say, look, there's 5 reasons why marketing matters. Number 1, the obvious one is just more money, but I could lay it out. I could say, here's why it matters. Let me make the case for you to handle your marketing in something that's beyond just money or more clients. And it's well, you'll inspire other people, with a good hippie business that's thriving. You'll be better able to help your colleagues and friends even better than you can market yourself, because you'll have this. Anyway, I could go on, but it's important to tie it to a bigger why. I mean, Simon Sinek wrote his book "Start with Why" and then follow up, "Find Your Why." But people don't buy what you do; they buy why you do it. Was his premise.
I want to share that. I love that, Ted. The 5 reasons. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's when you can tie your work into a bigger why, it's still connected to the point of view, but it's just the most meta version of the point of view. It's saying, here's the big picture. Globally, here's the goal. This is globally, here's the challenges we're facing. I've taken this particular piece of it, and here's how I'm threading the loom between these two,
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is just,
this is why a deck, because I see big picture so much. I live there so much that this deck is helping me, like, oh, come back to something specific. Specificity is even one of the cards. Yeah, because I do believe it's through being specific that we individuate and can actually grow spiritually and psychologically.
Amazing. Well, I really, I mean, it's my first time seeing this map, as you can all tell from my, it's really stunning. It's incredible. So if people wanted to work with you, wanted to learn more about you, what would they do?
Yeah, I mean, the simplest and quickest is they would take the quiz, which is, it's at showgirlawakening/quiz, and you discover which of the 9 archetypes resonated most, and also get a hit from the slideshow that comes from that of how alive and well she is living within you. And if that's interesting, you can also poke around the website. There's essentially several ebooks. Just, they're not called ebooks, but if you spent 30 minutes or an hour on my site, you could take that and you could run with it. You could take that and run with it. And then if you wanted to take one more little step, you'd sign up for an intro workshop, which I'm offering online now. And the next one, I'm intending to do them at least twice a month. But I don't know if you hear this. So yeah, at least twice a month online. Yeah.
Okay, so please go check out our stuff. And just a few practical things I want to point out. One is doing an intro workshop. So in terms of point of view, and to me, what would an intro workshop be? Here's the map.
Yep.
It's just basically giving the 30,000 foot view of the map and letting them know there's more there. But so I just encourage everyone, do that. And then Kel's website is so saturated in point of view. People often ask me, where does point of view go on a website? Just everywhere. Yes, you'll have a philosophy tab possibly, which I would advocate, but it's going to be in your bio, it's going to be on your homepage, on your sales page, and every blog post and social media post you ever craft. It's just inevitably going to be there. So this is more it's not the design you make, it's the thread that you're using to make the design in a way. It's the very material that you're building everything out of. And it's very powerful. I mean, Kel had the experience of a woman who's actually now joined the mentorship program who, having never heard of Kel, came across her randomly online, and through the website, which was so clear in terms of speaking to the experience, the lived experience that she had. So the relevance was there, the problem was articulated, the empathy was there, but then the context was there too. The premise was so clear. And so, having never met Kel, she books her spot in her weekend program and a ticket from London, England to San Francisco to go and work with her. And they've become dear friends since, and now she's actually in the mentorship program because she was so impressed with the point of view. So you can see levels of this, of having a clear point of view is part of what has people feel safe enough to take that leap, where it's immensely risky sometimes. But also, she was so impressed with the point of view, and she thought, I really want that. I want help with that. And so now she's working with me. So, even in Kel's work, she's seeing my point of view demonstrated.
Yes.
My point of view, that point of view is important, is in the point of view.
Yes.
So anyways, I hope this was useful for everyone, and I hope some of you will go check out Kel's work. I hope you're just green with envy, and this might motivate you and inspire you to really craft your own point of view. And of course, once a year, I don't know when you're watching this, but once a year I do a 30-day point of view program. So if you go to marketingforhippies.com/events, it'll be there or it won't be, but I've also got an ebook, Point of View Marketing, you can check out. And if you book a puttering session, marketingforhippies.com/puttering, we can talk about it.
Yes.
And then I've got my mentorship program, marketingforhippies.com/mentorship, and there's a sales letter there. Which also has its own share of point of view.
Work with Todd.
So thank you everyone for tuning in. What a treat to get to share Kel's work with you all. And I guess that's it.
All right.